Welcome to the For the Love of the Game podcast with your hosts, Jefferson Belford and Brian Hernandez. This is episode 47. Brian, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm hoping all the listeners are actually watching the YouTube right now. We got the dog in the background from Jeff looking mad cute.
We got a special guest on the
Yeah, we got the special guest over there. That was very cute. I'm happy we hit record exactly as that was happening. But no, man, I'm doing great. You know, my Knicks are on a losing streak. We just lost Mr. Robinson, so it was pretty sad. They're gonna be
3 weeks, right?
at least 3 weeks. It's gonna be bad for the next 3 weeks, at least for the Knicks. So there's that. But basketball's here. Trade deadline is almost here in a few weeks, so I'm very excited to get into all the fake trades and everything. I'm excited for our topics today. Jeff, how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Can't complain. Saw Kyrie put up 48 last night. That was amazing to see. Got Evelyn in the background as the special guest today. She clearly wants to hear all of our NBA opinions today. So I hope she keeps her ears wide open so she hears all the crazy
Yes.
trades that we're gonna get into. So perfect. The topics that we're going to be hitting today are the insurgents of the Sacramento Kings, the Sac Town, the opposite of Oakland.
Yep.
Oakland, California. No more Warriors. New big dogs in town look like the Kings right now. and and our second topic, Brian touched on it a little bit, is we're gonna go over some trade deadline targets and propose some trades and whether or not we think they're moving.
hmm
Brian, are you ready?
Yeah, man. Let's get into it.
All right, perfect. So to start off with the Sac Town, the Sacramento Kings. We gotta, Brian, I don't know if you got yours ready, but we gotta light that beam, man. We gotta light that beam. The Sacramento Kings are sitting at 26 and 18, making them the third best team in the West, first in the Pacific. The Pacific, if you guys didn't know, composed of Kings, Warriors, Lakers, the Clippers. For them to be number one, Brian, what do you think about the 2022-2023 Kings this year?
Ooh, man, Sacramento Kings. It is crazy. I will say, right now, them sitting in third in the West, did not expect that. I did not expect that. Now, did I expect them to be a bad team? Like, I feel like some people were always talking about like them not gonna be, you know, that good this year. I didn't think that. I thought they're gonna be more, honestly, probably closer to middle of the road. Maybe like I thought probably six or even most fifth seed was like their max. Um, I think there's still some time in the season for things to change, but this team right now, they're firing all cylinders. They're looking really good. It's it's cool to see. Like, I remember even myself, and I feel like a lot of people are always talking about like as soon as they traded Tyrese Halliburton, it was like, what are you doing? Why did you do that? Like for Sabonis, like so we all know Sabonis was good, but we didn't think he was this good, and I'm happy for Kings fans. Like this is exactly what they deserve, what they needed. I feel like even though my Knicks still suck, I feel like there's some like brotherhoods against with the Sacramento Kings. I always feel like there's something there just because their teams have been so bad for so long, and this looks like there's no hope. But like Kings are on the up and up. There's so much here. I even before I even go into like some of the players right now, like the moves they made with Kevin Herter and especially I remember even on this podcast I actually talked down on the draft pick of um, Keegan Murray. I was like, what's the Pistons player name again? I'm blanking for a second. Jaden Ivey. I was like, they should have took Jaden Ivey. He was right there. There's the star potential. Hey, Keegan Murray is exactly what this team needs. But before I go any further, Jeff, what are your thoughts?
You touched on some of the things that I actually like about this team, right? First thing I'm going to start off with is if you guys don't in your mind already have this or feel this way, I think it's kind of crazy not to feel this way at this point. Is I think Kevin Herter is making a very, very good play for most improved player of the year this year.
Hmm.
Um, the numbers aren't substantial, but if you were to look across the league, I think that he has really compelling argument as to why. Obviously, I think there's there's kind of
Yeah.
a guy that's running away with
Yeah.
it,
It's
but
a
like
one man race, but he's
but
there for number two.
yeah, like, he's definitely put himself out there to even be on like some boards,
Hmm.
on some of the boards as like a candidate is something I don't
Yeah.
think people were thinking about going into the season. With Kevin Herter, some of what I'm seeing right now, he's in the top 10. He's not really top two, like you just said, but it's the names that are above him. I would argue that he could be above
And what
a
are the
little
names? What
bit.
are the names? What are the names?
Like we got names like Trey Jones. I do think Trey Jones is having a pretty good season with the
Okay.
Spurs,
But
you know,
okay. Okay.
but I think he's always been a pretty
Yeah.
decent player, and he's
Hmm.
playing on a team that's not really seeing a lot of success right now.
Hmm. Hmm.
Shangun is coming into his own, but I still would
Same
argue
same thing.
Kevin Herter.
Not
You know,
Shengun is not affecting winning though.
exactly.
Hmm.
But I will not lie to you. The next four names have real reasons why that they're above him.
Yeah.
That one person being a former king, you mentioned him, Tyrese Halliburton, for
Um,
reasons understood.
he's
He
always
could be
been
in that list.
he's always been good though. Of like even if you think last so if you think about Tyrese Halliburton when he was on the Kings, very good player. But I actually at that moment I always said too of like Tyrese Halliburton is exactly the highest level of what you could be as a role player. Like as a role, he does exactly what you need him to do, and he does like all those things perfectly. Like, he's like the perfect role player in that kind of sense. And then he became the number one guy, and he broke out that what I put as a ceiling towards him, and he is but he also kind of did that last season though when he became that number one guy. So that's where I'm like he's just kind of continuing on that. Um, but to me, it feels like when John Morant won most
That's what I was
improved
gonna
kind
say.
of thing. That's what it kind of feels like, but in a lesser sense, but still like that kind of level.
And I think that that's how they've been classifying this award now lately
Yeah.
is like the ascension to stardom rather than like a real
Hmm.
progressive like change in your career.
Yeah.
And I agree with that. Like that's why the next person I agree too is breaking headwinds into this, and I think deservedly is here too. Is on your team, Jalen Brunson.
Yeah.
Um, the next person is Shay, and that's
Ah.
in that same.
Ah.
It's in the same vein
Yeah.
of what you said about John
Hmm.
Morant. They
Yeah.
they're considering it as like the ascension to stardom.
He's always
Is
been a
is
star.
why they're
Just
considering it.
yeah, he's just not been healthy. But like other than that, he's always been like really good. Like literally, what was it? Was it last year or 2 years ago that OKC literally was like sitting Shea on purpose because whenever he would play games, they would always win. They just always win. It's like we're tanking. You can't play. So like they have to force this guy to sit. He's too good. Yeah, that he shouldn't be there. Like, but some of those other guys, like I can see maybe Kevin Hurt is not number two, as you say more of these names, but he's definitely like you're
Then
saying he's top seven.
exactly,
Yeah,
he's in the conversation.
yeah, exactly.
That's all you need to know.
Hmm.
And obviously, number one, running away with it, Laurie Markkinen.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's real reasons why he's up there.
Hmm.
I don't think anybody thought he would be leading this, so rightfully so, he's on
And
top of
you know
this.
what's kind of funny? I was even thinking about it yesterday of with the Donovan Mitchell trade, you had Laurie Markkinen. I feel like kind of Laurie Markkinen was low key a throw in a sense. Like that trade was more centered around Colin Sexton. Colin Sexton was like the big like this is the star player you want. You have all your first round picks and you get a good young player in Laurie Markkinen. That's what that was. Not Laurie Markkinen's most improved player and Colin Sexton's all right.
And you
Like
know
that's
what?
crazy.
What makes me frustrated about that? And we're like we always say this on the pod. We're
Hmm.
friends outside of this podcast,
Yeah.
so we for years have talked about like Laurie Markkinen potentially being in trades or
Hmm.
being like someone that's given a chance at the keys, right? And
Yep.
because I don't think he was ineffective when he was on the Bulls. I just
Nope.
think that he was in a place where they weren't going to use him as the number one option with the ascension of Zach Levine, right? Then he moves over to the Cavs, and I was a big proponent of, yo, the Nets need to find a way to get this guy because, like, they had 3 7-footers in their lineup. And you knew that that was the most expendable 7-footer there
Yeah.
was Laurie Markkinen, right? So, I like to play some 2K. I always do my rebuilds. He's always a guy that I look out for in years in the past, trying to put him on my team. But yeah, no, like it's clear that he's in that. But
Hmm.
as I digress and go back to the Kings,
Yes.
it's I'm happy to hear that Kevin Herter's even in this conversation. His splits are looking a lot better over his career averages. The points are going up. I'm going to give him the friendly bounce roundup. Is he's shooting around 16 points per game. His steals went up a little bit to over one a game. Turnovers still around the same thing. It's a jump in field goal over his career at
Hmm.
48%. And then he even had a jump in 3 point percentage to 48% this
Yeah.
year over his career numbers, which is 44. So the guy is taking steps to become a viable role player for this team. We didn't even talk about the guys that we know are the
Yeah.
stars of this team, right? We knew like Sabonis is just one of those type of guys. Like you put him anywhere, he figures it out, right?
Hmm.
So like the numbers that he's doing for rebounds, for assists, it's easy to say that Sabonis is more of like he's essentially like a Nikola Jokovic light. Like,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
he's like you look at his numbers, he's averaging around 19 a game, around 13 rebounds a game, and then 7 assists a game. And then he has a true shooting percentage of 67%. Like the dude's doing pretty well.
Hmm.
Obviously there's some places where I think he could develop a little bit more, but like 37% from three from a big man, that's something you're looking for, you know?
Yeah.
And then Aaron Fox, I don't even think there's much to say beyond like he's always been this player. There's been times where the backcourt's been a little bit cluttered, or I don't think cluttered's the best word. I would say it was there was too much chefs in the kitchen in that situation, and his game suffered a little bit because of that. But now he's the definitive point guard. There's no questions about it. His game's not suffering because Sabonis is a better. Yes, he does require the ball because obviously he assists the ball, but like he can still play off ball. He could get into the block. He's not a guy that's clogging up the lanes. Like it's the perfect marriage of like two star players to have.
Yeah, it's kind of weird because when you that's the thing we always look at like when trades happen or anything like that we look at it on paper, and on paper I think everyone's always kind of looked at this and was like, how does this work? How does this fit? Sabonis historically not a good 3 point shooter. This year, yeah, he's shooting 37% from three. I still wouldn't put too much stock in it just because he's only taking one attempt a game. But like the fact that he's even taking one is pretty nice, and making it that percentage is good. De'Aaron Fox historically has just been a bad 3 point shooter. Even this year, like I mean, he's shooting 33%, which is one of his highest. I think I have to check again if it is his highest in his career. But he's taking 5 attempts, so he's at least stretching the floor slightly. Because we always know that, like, De'Aaron Fox, that guy is, if not the fastest, one of the fastest players in the league. Like, if he's able to be a threat from three and do that, like, he's that much more dynamic. But he's always been really good. It was surprising even last season when there's the trade rumors of, like, De'Aaron Fox is potentially on the move. And it was like, I remember seeing that. And as a Knicks fan without a point guard, I was like, do whatever you can do to trade for this guy. Like, if his stock is low, that's someone I'm happy to buy low on. And he's just been fantastic this year. But to go back to the point where, like, these are two guys that historically are not good 3 point shooters, to put them together on a team as your two main stars, not really the mold that you see that works. Like, if you think about stars in the NBA today, almost every single one is like a pretty good 3 point shooter. And like, now you have these two guys, and they both like to work in the paint. It feels and sounds weird, but the rest of their roster construction has just been so good. So good. We talked about Kevin Herter, how they stole Kevin Herter away from Atlanta. That was literally just a throwaway that Atlanta did. Of the trade was Justin Holiday, Maurice Harkless, and a future first round pick for Kevin Herter. That's that's the trade. Like, I think even when we saw that at the time, we were like, "Huh? What is this?" And like, it's kind of crazy of like Kevin Herter playing with, like, I hate to say it, it hurts me to say it, like an elite playmaker and Trae Young beforehand, getting some really nice shots. Now his the handoff game that he has with Sabonis has just been so nice to see. It works so well, man. This team, I mean, right now they are, according to Cleaning the Glass, they're third in offense in the league. In the last 2 weeks, they are number one in offense, and like by a
I could see
pretty
that.
by a pretty wide margin to say. Of like, I think, yeah, Sacramento is, in the last 2 weeks, they're averaging 131 points a game, and I think it's Denver that's the number two team, averaging 124. Like, they're completely dominating right now. It's crazy that they're third in the West. Do you, or yeah, one, I'll let you jump in. What you're gonna say?
I'm not sure if we saw the same
Yeah,
thing. It seems like you looked at the efficiency graph that they give after 10 games, right? So I think I was seeing on that graph that they, like you mentioned, number one in efficiency and offense. Defense, still something.
defense. Yeah, defense is
still
not there yet.
still something still something they need to work
Yeah,
on. But they have a net rating they have the best net rating in the last 10 games. They
yeah,
are also riding a 6 game winning streak. But
yeah,
but something that's really funny is the West. They're running like the two top teams are running away with the West
yeah,
right now, the
yeah.
Grizzlies and the Nuggets, with being the Nuggets and Grizzlies respectively in that sense
Hmm.
of one and two. But it just goes to show, like you said, no one would have in the beginning of the season put them there, and it's good to see that they're being considered for this because they are truly um they are embodying some stuff that I've seen Nets do, leaning into the mid range because obviously, like
Yeah.
you mentioned, uh, uh, De'Aaron Fox is not truly the best 3 point shooter, but like it's
Yeah.
always so funny to think about how like things like that is relative. It's relative to this time. Like if you take
Hmm.
De'Aaron Fox and you put him in 2008, you put him in 2010, that's a
Yeah.
great that's an all-star. That's
Yeah.
like an all-star superstar level player shooting at 33% from 3. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I don't know Kobe's 3 point splits, but I think if I went and I checked it right now, it's not that far off. Like so like it's just so funny how relative those things are, right? But yeah, like they're leaning into their mid-range game. Their ability to space the floor has gotten substantially better with getting Kevin Harder into this game. He's getting all his shots in. I would have wished that there was a way that Dante DiVincenzo was still a part of this team too,
Yeah.
because that would just be a pretty solid like team of like flamethrowers to have,
Hmm.
in that situation. So, people are feeding off of the 2 stars, and guys like Herder are benefiting from it.
I like what you talked about of it's kind of funny, like you mentioned with like Kobe. Like we always think about like Kobe as an amazing 3 point shooter, and exactly kind of like we were saying. For his career, he's an average 33% 3 point shooter.
Exactly. How would I didn't even check it, and
Yeah,
that's crazy. It's the same
yeah,
exact number.
yeah. It's at his best season, which I saw was 2002 2003. He shot 38% from with 4 attempts. But like other than that, he was always hovering like 34, 35, 36, 33, 30. His last few seasons were just pretty bad. But shooting under 30%. But uh yeah, it's kind of crazy. And like we kind of saw it even last year with the mid range is kind of king in the NBA, surprisingly, still, or is dominating right now. Of we saw with Phoenix Suns last season. They were one of the best offenses, if not the best, and literally Chris Paul and Devin Booker just made so many of their points just straight from mid range. Like I don't think they were. I think they were actually a pretty bad team shooting in the paint. Like in the paint, they were horrible, but like mid range, they could not miss. And like it's such a good shot.
And it's a part of the game that is like being neglected. That's
Yeah,
why it's like you're seeing these teams, like I said, look at how taking into account like Kevin Durant is having a
yeah,
career year in the mid range where he's just like blowing it out of the water, right?
yeah,
Like, but it's because it's not being guarded because the NBA's analytics departments are telling people that that's an inefficient shot.
yeah. Like let them take
And
that.
exactly. So I'll trade year 2 for my 3
Hmm.
is the mindset nowadays. But sometimes that's if you know how to lean into it, right? Like you can see a lot of positives coming from there. And the Kings, you said the Suns benefiting from it. Kevin Durant, on an individual perspective, is leaning and taking advantage of it as well. And obviously, the guy that I spoke about earlier,
Yeah,
Kyrie Irving, does take a lot of heavily contested,
yeah.
difficult mid-range shots. So like
Insane.
there's still people that see value in taking that shot.
You look at like a lot of the top level kind of players, and a lot of them, other than like of course like players in the Warriors like Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and all that, like a lot of them make their money in the mid range, like Jason Tatum and all that. Like these players, you see the what am I trying to say? The consistency there, the pattern is the word I'm looking for. You see the pattern of like a lot of these really high level elite players, like they're very good in the mid range. I wanted to ask you, Mike Brown, new coach of this team, you know, it is, and they're overperforming expectations. One of the best offenses. Do you think Mike Brown should be in consideration for coach of the year?
He's definitely in that conversation. There's I don't know how you feel about this, but I'm not really keen on putting Joe Mazzulla
Mm,
on the top of that list. I
I
really
agree.
do feel like it's it would be a travesty to have the guy that's already like had a
Yeah.
team that went to the finals
Inherits
be
one of the best
chosen
team.
as like exactly be chosen as like coach of the year. That really rubs me the wrong way. But I do think for me, if it was me giving out the award, it's a three-man race, right?
Hmm.
Obviously, and I'm gonna do it in respect and respectively. Um, I think you have uh, a strong case for Willie Green to be
Hmm.
the coach of the year. Then you have Akban for all of the adversity that he had to go through, and then I have Mike Brown as that third person, and then I would even I think I think it starts to become a really big conversations to start having. Do I put Will Hardy before Joe Mazzulla?
Yeah.
You know, because like no one expected this from the Jazz. Granted, they're a couple games under 500 now, but like they were not supposed to be here at all.
Yeah.
I think it's even safe to say, and I don't, and I understand some people are going to say you don't want to praise like mediocrity, um, but there's another person that I think's in this conversation is and I really don't know how to say his last name when they say it, but Mark Daganel Nagolat, the coach of the Thunder, what he has been having to deal with this season with losing essentially your number one pick in
Yeah.
this season. He was the second pick, but you know what I mean. Like
Their first.
the
Yeah.
consensus for a long time was he was going to be the number one pick, and we know that he's the franchise when he comes back, right?
Hmm.
So like for him to lose that guy, and for them to respectively still be in a place where they're competitive, they're shooting for a play-in game. He needs to be in this conversation as well.
I'm curious to get your thoughts on even a guy like Taylor Jenkins. I feel like he should somewhere be in that conversation. I know Memphis has always kind of been at that at this the top couple seeds in the West, especially. I just kind of feel like, especially with how this team, the few trades that they had, and losing players like, I forget, he went to the Philly,
The,
and
the Anthony Melton.
yeah, D'Anthony Melton, losing, slow mo Kyle Anderson, like kind of guys like that were big pieces of this team. They've kind of filled those holes, and yet they're still one of the best teams right now. And the development of a guy like, Desmond Bain and all that, like it's it's pretty. I think he should be in the conversation, but I don't know. What do you
I
think?
think he should.
Yeah,
I do think he should be in the conversation as well. Um, but I think that if that's going to be the argument, then why is it Mike Malone?
yeah, I know
You know?
yeah, it's
And I
I
know
know.
his stars are coming back,
Yeah,
but um, for him to maintain and continue to be successful when stars are not there and when they are there as a coach. Obviously, Jokic is a big part of that,
yeah,
but like you know, it's not just a star that changes everything because morale could go down, and it is a coach's job to keep that up, right?
yeah,
So like for what they've been doing in the last few years with their injury problems and all to see like them at a place where they're a little bit more full power. You see that they're running away with the West. I think that that makes him a good person to have in this conversation as well.
yeah,
But I think I bundle all three of them in the same like bucket. Is like Mike Malone, Taylor Jenkins, my Missoula. I can't remember his first name, but all three of them are on really great teams, and I don't think that being on a really great team is going to be what separates you. Well, Granted, you know what? I guess then I would have to even walk back like the Jack Vaughn thing. But I think there's you have to add
Yeah.
context with the Jack Vaughn situation. He went into a terrible situation. You're having one of your star players that was suspended for 8 games.
Yeah.
You have one of your star players that literally told you guys he didn't want it to be there during the summer. Like there
Yeah,
was
two of them.
so much exactly.
Kyrie too.
And then let's be honest. I don't think we got to the point of where we are right now about Nick Claxton until Jock
That's
Vaughn
true.
took the helm. And like the guy is playing at
Hmm.
a level that I always hoped that he would get to, but I don't think I ever thought we would ever see it actualized. And the
Yeah.
guy's just playing amazing right now.
Yeah. I definitely Jack Vaughn needs to get some respect in his name there. I think that's the thing. I think it feels like a four-man race right now, depending on when Kevin Durant comes back and everything and where the Nets actually end up finishing. I could see Jack Vaughn really being there. Like you're saying, there's a lot of adversity. I think the best stories, like you're saying, definitely I feel like the Kings, Mike Brown, the Pelicans and Willie Green, and the Nets. Like if those teams finish where like near the top of their conferences and one of the best records in the league, either of them could really win. It's all about the story.
I
It's all
agree.
about the story. All right. Do you? I actually I like some of the coaches talk that we just had, but do you want to move on to some of this trade talk, Jeff?
What we came here for. This is what I came here for.
Yeah.
All right, perfect. So obviously we are in trade deadline season. I,
Hmm.
I said trade deadline season. I think it would be better to just say trade season. A lot of names out there, Brian. A lot of
Yeah.
names to throw out there to consider. I think we start off with the biggest one that's been thrown around for a little bit now is Kyle Kuzma. And what do you think is going to happen to Kyle Kuzma? Is he someone that's staying
Hmm.
or is going? And potentially, where do you think he may go?
So, Kyle Kuzma, like you're saying, definitely one of the biggest names. He's actually probably been one of those kind of names of like improving, but he's always been pretty good. But like this season, he's actually kind of taken it to another level. Is it all star level? Not necessarily, but like he's playing really well. I think, especially with how the Kyle Kuzma has been playing this season and some of the reports, I feel like Kyle Kuzma is going to stay. And I feel like even though the Wizards right now, they're 19 and 26, there's something about them that's telling me like they want to win. they they want to still try to be in contention. Maybe Bradley Beal's missed a lot of the season. You know, Bradley Beal's back. You have Kuzma. You have Porzingis. I think what they're trying to do is to go on a run, try to get some wins, bring up the mood on this team because a lot of these guys, if they don't win, are probably gonna leave in free agency. Someone like Porzingis potentially, maybe someone like Kyle Kuzma, who's kind of already, talked about that in a sense of him, or at least there's reports of him potentially wanting to leave in some free agency. Like, it's kind of crazy that the Wizards wouldn't trade him, but I feel like this kind of just a Wizards move. I don't know. There's something about it that's just screaming like, unless they get their socks blown off on a trade offer, they won't trade him. But what do you think?
I agree. I think Kyle Kuzma stays because that's the direction that they've told us they want to go.
Yeah.
That's the only reason why I'll agree with that. But I think that with a guy that already has ideas of leaving, you don't just sit around and wait for the
Hmm.
inevitable, right? That's just how I feel. So, and in that case, I did make a mock
Oh, word.
if there was some interest on taking a look out there, getting a peek at what's
Hmm.
happening out there, right? Like, I think pairing with someone that is already injury prone, um, getting a fresh face into this team on the Wizards would help them out in the sense of like, I think this player that I'm proposing that they trade with um, is a player that he doesn't do exactly what Kyle Kuzma does, but he adds another level of flair that Kyle Kuzma doesn't particularly bring on the athleticism side, even though I do think Kyle Kuzma is a pretty athletic player.
Hmm.
But I think that Kyle Kuzma should be getting ready to pack his bags and heading to Atlanta,
Oh,
Georgia,
word.
because I think that there's a trade where they can make it make sense. Obviously, the Hawks have torpedoed their
Yeah.
trade their trade values with picks. Um, Sadly, or maybe I'm just not as good with the trade machine on ESPN, but I couldn't see into every one of their like picks that they do have available.
Hmm.
But I think you package a pick um, to the trade that you're sending for John Collins, probably two. Um, One of them could be protected. One of them could be a swap, vice versa. I don't think it's and it's more of or for those scenarios. And then one is just a straight up unprotected, could get the job done with John Collins. But I think to make salaries work, um, now on the Hawks side, where I think this would be a benefit for them, even though even though the trade machine says they were going to lose 8 more games because of this trade. Um, I think getting Kyle Kuzma and pairing him with Roy Hachimura would be a good package to send over to the Hawks. And Hawks now having even though he's injury prone, it's still a good insurance policy to have Rory on the bench
Hmm.
for when Hunter goes down. It's more of like an inevitable thing when
Yeah.
that Hunter's going to go down at some point in the season. Rory has shown enough in his career that he could be a useful um, wing where he could switch from that 3 or 4 position and guard pretty well with threes and fours, even at sometimes he has shown he could hold his own against a five.
Hmm.
But that's not what I think you need to expect because you got Clint Capella. But Kyle Kuzma adds a boost of scoring and defense. He's a true two-way player in that sense, where I think that this could be the thing that's like be like the spark plug and can kind of clear out that dark cloud that's kind of sitting on the Hawks right now. What do you think about that, Brian?
I like that. I like that move. I feel like Atlanta needs a little bit more. I feel like right now they're definitely relying too much on DeJounte Murray and Trey Young. And especially like Trey Young, I feel it's just more of a streaky kind of guy. You add someone like Kyle Kuzma in there, that's going to be more steady for you, and just gives you a little like more size. I really like that a lot. Um, I like I honestly, I kind of feel like I like Rui a little bit more in the sense of like going to Atlanta, um, and then having more of like that backup role. Bench always needs help, so I like that a lot. I think it'd be very smart for the Wizards to make this trade. Is it gonna happen? We'll see. And but I like though. I like Rui being in a different this destination.
You know, another aspect that I thought about, like with like if they make this trade, and I think like this happens a lot in the NBA, is like kind of put players in weird circumstances
Hmm.
because they have someone drafted after them that kind of fits the same spot that they're sitting in, right? I think this opens up the door a little bit for Danny Advia to fall right back into that small forward position a little bit more better, easier.
Yeah.
He's not like a world beater, obviously, but like he does. he does do what you kind of need out of him. He's averaging around like 8 points a game, 6 rebounds, close to 3 assists a game. Those numbers, those splits should go up as you get some of those minutes back from Rui. And I know Rui has been injured a lot a lot lately, so he's already been taking some of those minutes. But in that respect, I think it gives him some more time, some more flexibility, some more confidence to go into his game and know that John Collins is not going to be someone that is threatening your role as much, you know?
Yeah.
And then, yeah, I just think that it does give them what they need in the sense of like getting someone that has like some firepower. I think John Collins would welcome a change of scenery as well too. So
Yes.
I think it's good on the Wizard side as well. And then you get draft capital.
Yeah. I think I think this kind of I think it's good for both teams. I think both teams need a switch. They need something, and I think it's a good little spark plug for both.
Agreed. All right. So the next name, not really a household name,
Yeah.
but Jaden McDaniels. Fine. Does he stay or does he go?
I think Jaden McDaniels is gonna go. I think he's gonna go. Um, the tough part is, I mean, so right now, I feel like Jaden McDaniels is like kind of on almost everybody's radar, and like everyone can use like a guy like him, especially even if you just want him to bolster your bench. And I feel like he's kind of gettable. The one team that I see that has a lot of interest in just making moves itself, and he kind of fits in the mold of players that they kind of like of the Raptors. You know, 6'8", 6'9" guys. They like to hoard them all. I wouldn't be surprised if this is another one of their kind of hoarding kind of situations. Maybe this is some sort of not a one for one swap, but add a couple other players in here, and you got like someone like, you know, Gary Trent going to somewhere like Minnesota they need more shooting, and then you swapped them for like Jaden McDaniels. I could see something like that, but like I said, not a one for one swap necessarily. But what do you got?
So I think if he goes in a package, right?
Yeah.
And if he goes in a package, one team that I think they could benefit from, I could benefit from getting a guy like this is your team.
Oh,
Is the
word.
New York Knicks. And I will tell you, in the mock, it was a three-way trade.
All right.
I think there's a guy that's going to wind up on our list later
Mhm.
down the road that I paired into this trade as well. But when I look at the trade, when I put it into the trade machine, your team is the only one that lands in the positive out of after this trade.
That's
Um,
funny.
I I took the mindset or thought process on like what is a team, well obviously Minnesota is that team that is looking to move pieces because they just it's not happening. It's
Yeah.
not happening,
Not
right?
happening.
So like what ways can you like freshen up team while at the same time there's some teams that need to get some malcontents off their own
Mhm.
teams, right? And Knicks felt like the perfect place to start with. But there is a malcontent that is on the T Wolves that needs to be moved as well. So
Oh.
my trade proposal was a three-way trade. Brian, tell me what you think about
All
this.
right. All
So
right.
Minnesota, and I struggled with this because I tried to see if there was a way where I could move this guy over to the Knicks potentially for a reunion, but the money just doesn't match, right?
No, it's don't
But
match.
I think that this person does help the Minnesota Timberwolves in the long run as like a backup, even a starter, and potentially is moving Tim Hardaway to Minnesota. Clearly, you know who the third team is now.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Moving the malcontent of Cam Reddish off
Ooh.
that Knicks. take that salary out of there, man. He's on expiring,
Yep.
which teams like Minnesota are gonna love
Mm-hmm.
over the tax line by like 3 million right now. They with an expiring contract, they're happy to see that. Then bolster up that man down in the block. Give Rudy some time to get on the bench when he's doing his BS that he be doing on the court. Adding JaVale McGee move
Oh.
as well to Minnesota, right?
Okay.
JaVale McGee, and Cam Reddish definitely is to make the money work for
Mm-hmm.
Minnesota because the person that I moved would is making a lot of money. In this case, the Knicks will be getting back. In this case, the Knicks lose one guy, but they get back three guys. And
Mm.
I think that all of these guys actually provide a support to what the Knicks need in the long run. Bolstering that backup power forward. I even thought about maybe throwing Obi, but I did not,
Mm.
and wanted to throw Obi in this. But I think that to have a different aspect of a guy like Jaden McDaniels, like you were mentioning, onto the Knicks helps bolster that four spot
Yeah.
around Julius Randle. Allows for him to take the load off a little bit. I think like where I've seen Julius Randle be at his best is when he's not required to be the guy that is doing it all, right?
Yeah.
So in this case, Jaden McDaniels takes that off of him with added bonus of adding 11 points to your team, right? Then two other guys are specialists at this point in their careers. They classify this guy as a shooting guard here, but I think that he'd fit in pretty well as actually just a point guard. Austin Rivers, he's on a 1 year contract expiring, so that's you're not losing
Yeah.
anything in that. You get to test him out for a little bit. You're already testing out Cam
Yeah.
Reddish, and obviously the experiment seems like it's reached its precipice.
Yeah, it's done.
So Austin Rivers is going to be shooting for that point guard role. He understands his role. He understands what he needs to bring. I think this is a good place for him to come back to, and try to see how he could help the Knicks continue their ascension up the standings. And then lastly, Bryn Forbes, some added punch from the 3 point line. Adding Bryn Forbes adds, like I mentioned, ability to stretch the floor a little bit, right? That's something that you're missing with Cam Reddish when
Mm.
he's on and off in his game. With you can insert him in the lineup with RJ Barron. Sometimes their games to sync where they're having a bad game together, and you want to have a guy that could break that up a little bit. With having a 3 point specialist in there in Bryn Forbes allows for you to stretch the floor, make the lanes a little bit easy, make the game a little bit easier for guys like Julius, for Jalen to find him in a corner, and just have someone that you could rely on from the three, right? And then the Dallas Mavericks. The Dallas Mavericks have been talking for a long time about where is that second star going to come from? Where are we going to have someone like a Jalen Brunson come back? I don't think this guy is a 1-to-1 for a Jalen Brunson, but I do think that this guy brings an added flair that they do have in Spencer Dinwiddie. But to have this third person and have someone Spencer Dinwiddie is actually
Yeah.
pretty familiar with. And D'Angelo Russell being on the Mavs helps them in the long run as they look to ascend in the Western Conference standings. Brian, what do you think about that trade?
I I like that a lot for the Mavericks. I think that's an awesome trade for the Mavericks to get someone like D'Angelo Russell. Um, they need more help. Luca's asking for help. I think even when you're sitting someone like Luca to have still a lot of firepower in like D'Angelo Russell and Spencer Dinwiddie is like really awesome to see. I think that's actually like it's a pretty interesting fit. I actually like it a lot. I think that it's something they need. They just need more scoring. They need other players that can get a bucket. D'Angelo Russell can get a bucket. For the Timberwolves, because I definitely like the move because they need to just to get rid of a lot of trash that they have. Like
Yeah.
they signed a lot of on paper good players, but right now things are not working. You gotta change the locker room. You gotta move some pieces around, bring in some new energy. I like bringing in someone like Cam Reddish. I wonder how that would work still, because I feel like Cam Reddish, like I said, the man wants to be a star. He wants more minutes. He wants the opportunity. I don't think that's going to happen as much in Minnesota, but someone like Tim Hardaway, that's pretty nice. That's a good fix that they need. Need more shooting. Need someone that can actually make shots. I think it's a pretty seamless fit with the rest of their roster. Tim Hardaway Jr. does not have to dribble too much, so just give him the ball, he's gonna fire it. For the Knicks, I think it's actually pretty interesting. I think getting rid of someone like Cam Reddish, like who's pretty much a nothing on the team right now. He's not playing on the rotation no matter what happens. I feel like at this point, almost everybody can foul out of the game, and Tom Thibodeau would not play Cam Reddish still. Like, I don't know if they're trying to try to stop him from getting injured or something, but regardless, Cam Reddish is not getting his butt off the bench. I like Jaden McDaniels. I think that's pretty interesting. I think you would want to see if you would play him, either one in that situation, getting rid of someone like Obi Toppin, because already Obi Toppin has like zero playing time just because there's no actual spot for him on the team, and I would like to see him actually get an opportunity. So get someone like Jaden McDaniels, who's Obi's replacement, ship Obi off. I like that. Austin Rivers, I feel like that would kind of be more of like a they'll probably just like waive him instantly because Austin Rivers just did not work out on this team like 2 years ago. So he would probably just be leave. I like Bryn Forbes. I think he needs a new location. He's playing like the worst in his career and not getting any minutes right now. So he's a good player, very solid player, good shooter. In other years, he needs a new location. So I think it's actually I think that's a good trade for all teams. I do like that. I wonder if we see something like this happening because I think D'Lo's gone for sure. Or
Yeah.
yeah, it seems like it's too crazy, too vocal for him not to be gone. Like if Minnesota ends up after the trade deadline with pretty much the same roster, Minnesota's in very scary position right now and not going to be looking good.
I agree. And you know what? You brought up Obi Toppin. Don't worry,
Oh yeah.
Brian. I got a
Oh.
trade there too,
Oh
man.
word. Oh word. All right, I like it. So where you want to go next? Do you want to go to that trade? What are you thinking?
You know what? I guess it is the best caveat. So,
Yeah.
I don't know if you've been looking out there in the Twitterverse, watching SNY lately, but Ian Begley has been talking about a guy that the Knicks should be looking at to replace for the injury that is going on currently
Mm,
with Mitchell Robinson, right? And
yep.
one name that is screaming to Ian Begley is Serge Ibaka. But let's be honest. Let's be honest. He is towards the end of his career. But I am a believer that all Serge Ibaka needs is about 5-10 minutes in the game, and he could affect the game in a positive way, right? He still
Mhm.
has a positive PER. He actually almost has a relatively close PER to Obi Toppin. So one person, well, if because the Bucks already said that
Yeah.
they're happy with making this happen for him to move him off of what he's doing right now. I guess the real question comes down to how willing are the Bucks going to be about moving this next person to make the salaries work. And how much do they value a guy like Obi Toppin in their lineup?
Mhm.
Um, the trade I propose is in not only getting Serge Ibaka, also getting, and in this case now, since you're gonna
Okay.
waive Austin Rivers,
Yeah.
getting getting George Hill back in that trade
Okay.
for Obi Toppin. What do you think about that, Brian?
I think it's okay. And so if as a Knicks fan, it's like hard when you see someone like Obi Toppin, who I actually think like if this man actually just gets like minutes, if he was on a team like Houston, Obi would actually be like very good. Like I think he'd be very good getting a lot of minutes. He's shown when he does get minutes, he's actually like pretty nice. He's more of a he's a rhythm kind of guy. Like he needs to be in the flow of the game. Get the ball in his hands, have some confidence that he can like make a mistake and not get pulled instantly. Um, that's the kind of player he is. But like on the Knicks, his value is so low. So the whole point was just mostly just saying like there's a lot of potential there. They picked them number 8 in the draft and over someone like Tyrese Halliburton and a lot of other pretty decent players. It's pretty painful to see him like be this bad or to not have this opportunity and to ship him out for Serge Ibaka, who's like on his last legs,
On his last legs.
and George Hill, who's also kind of on his last legs, but like someone that I feel like should have been on the Knicks probably a while ago, but I feel like he's a kind of like, Tibbs kind of player that they would need and like, but I think it's all right. I think it helps their situation on like because right now their bench is like pretty bad. And it gives Obi some freedom on his wings and to go fly away. But it's all right. If I was a Knicks fan, I would probably as I am a Knicks fan, but like I would if I'm running the Knicks, I would probably just be like, let me keep Obi and just not do that trade. But if I had to do the trade, I wanted to make some room for Jaden McDaniels or anything like that. It's not the worst. It's not the end of the world.
And let me switch a name in there.
All right.
You know what? Actually, I would not switch that name because, like, I think if you're going to trade this guy, you want to go for someone that gives you more value.
Yeah.
Um, Obi, and someone that we're going to talk about later in this conversation on the Knicks are both on team friendly deals where they have
Mm-hmm.
2 years left. They obviously have options as well to extend that. So like they're not on crazy deals. Like there's no
Yeah.
need to like go crazy and finding a replacement for them. But in this case too, Knicks get off of both of these contracts at the end of the season. So it is experimental pieces. If you are done with the OB experiment in the sense like you just feel like there's not going to be a world where we're able to free up minutes for him, you got to start wondering like where can you move him? Where can you potentially see value in getting it back? But I also think that obviously, like I mentioned, ESPN Trade Machine is not so easy to find
Yeah.
how you attach picks to them. So, so I would also be expecting a pick coming back from the Bucks in this trade because you're
Yeah.
giving me 2 expiring contracts. You get an aspiring young man that is looking to continue his development, and who knows what he becomes on a team that is contending for a championship.
Yeah.
And I think is it's the only best. It's the only way you get the best of both worlds for both teams.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. I mean, I think because yeah, at the end of the day, there's zero shot right now that Obi's ever gonna be something on the Knicks because you have someone like Julius Randle in the way, and at the moment, Julius Randle's playing so good that you kind of can't take him out of games. And so that means Obi playing like 8-10 minutes in a game, like and just not getting any shot at all. Um, it's sad. It would be interesting. I would like to see him be somewhere else, but the value hurts. It hurts.
I hear you on that. All right. So I already went on John Collins, but I do want to
Yeah.
hear your thought process of like, what do you think? Do you think he stays or does he go? This is like the third, fourth year of hearing
Yeah.
this, but
So exactly what you just touched on there. This is the third, fourth year that we're hearing John Collins going to be on some other team and they're looking for a trade and they want to upgrade. I don't think it's going to happen. I'll believe it when I see it. For some reason Atlanta just will not get rid of John Collins. It's and I feel like they've always just kind of overvalued what John Collins is, and like he's a very good player. He's just hard to fit on a lot of teams. Kind of even someone like we talked about it I think last week, like someone like even Sabonis, that he works perfectly well for this Sacramento team because they didn't even beforehand have that much or someone even in that position that could take any time away. They don't have like a star small forward, a star center, anything like that. John Collins is kind of hard to fit on a lot of teams. What I thought was interesting, I saw that Shams said right now that the Jazz are favored to trade for John Collins, which I don't necessarily understand as much. I actually like Laurie Markkinen playing more of the four rather than the five. So like I would assume you're gonna move Laurie Markkinen to the five if you get someone like John Collins. But at the end of the day, I think it's the same thing with like Bradley Beal that we saw last season. Of I feel like every year he's like, I want to win, I gotta get a championship, I want a ring, and I'm gonna sign a 5 year contract with the Wizards, and I'm gonna stay with the Wizards forever. But I want to win, and I kind of I kind of feel like John Collins the same situation. We're gonna hear him always wanting to be somewhere else, but he's gonna be on the Atlanta for a long time.
no, I agree. Even though I did make the trade
Yeah,
proposal, I do always feel like when someone's been in the rumor mill for so long, it becomes harder to trade that person
yeah,
because like you're in a place of like everyone understands you overvalue
hmm,
this prospect. And to take us down memories lane, I think of the Dwight Howard saga of for 2 years straight. The trade that we kept on hearing, and it's the same thing that's happening with the Lakers right now,
yeah.
with the Buddy Healed and Miles Turner. They're Buddy healing and Miles turning us to death. With every single time there's a chance to trade, you hear the same exact trade, no variation
Yeah.
to anything, just the same exact trade. So that is the situation that we saw in with the Nets and Magic when they were trying to come to a place of trading Dwight Howard, where he even got to a point where we thought the trade was done. But the person that it was in that trade rumor mill was circulating in that rumor mill for so long. It's so hard to live like that, right? Like to live
Yeah.
with that cloud over your head. And I feel for a guy like Brook Lopez that had to continue to produce, continue to be a great player, and hear that for years. Even in the years that led after it, it always hanged over his head. It felt like until he left, right?
Mhm.
And but what you notice as well too is that the value of what you were going to get back from him was significantly lower than what you thought it would be. So Brook Lopez went from his return would be superstar Dwight Howard to wind up being D'Angelo Russell and Timothy Mozgov.
Yeah.
You know, like that is a big jump in
Yeah.
change of value, right? It's the same in same respects why I think John Collins' value of what they thought it should have been has downgraded to something like a Kyle Kuzma and
Mhm.
Rui trade, where even in some cases, some people may say, I don't even think that that's a trade that I would even give for him, you know? Like, because it's just like a microscope is held on that person for so long.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. I'm even kind of thinking about it right now. Like, if I'm a team who would I rather have right now, Kyle Kuzma or John Collins?
Oh,
I
Kuzma.
think I
Like,
think
let's be honest.
I'm taking Kyle Kuzma. That's crazy. And so exactly what you're saying, like
Only
Atlanta right now is too much value.
the only reason why I think that that's a good trade for both of those teams is because there it's the writings on the walls
Yeah,
that Kyle Kuzma is gonna leave.
he's gonna
Like,
leave.
why put yourself in a situation where you know the guy's gonna leave? In this case, now the Hawks will be, gambling with the idea of having Kyle Kuzma and convincing him to stay. But I think it becomes a lot easier when you're playing with a star point guard to
Yeah,
convince yourself, like, you know what, I might like it over here, And the Hawks are not that far removed from having some of the pieces that made them the Eastern Conference, one of the teams in the Eastern Conference Finals. But it's I think Kyle Kuzma could convince myself to believing that he would resign there before he would resign with the Wizards.
yeah,
So that's where I get where I feel about that trade in them and with John Collins.
yeah. I feel like Kyle Kuzma is he he wants to. I feel like things that are on his mind is like somewhat big market and actually getting a chance to win. Like, I feel like those are the things that he really values, and if he goes to Atlanta, their shots a lot better. It's definitely a lot better than what it is right now. John Collins, get him out of there, free that man. But we'll see. Um, do you want to move on to the next player?
Yes, the next player has been living in obscurity the last couple months because he's just been hidden. Let's be honest, he's just been hidden.
Mm.
Uh, that player, his name is John is Ja is Ja is Jay Crowder. Is Jay Crowder. Brian, what are your thoughts? Does he stay or does he go?
I think Jay
Well,
Crowder
he's
has,
clearly
yeah, he
going.
has to go. He has to go. I wonder. It's just kind of surprising that we're about to be halfway through the season, and yet the Suns have yet to trade Jay Crowder. When like they both agreed they're parting ways, it kind of right now feels like an Andre Iguodala who on the Grizzlies who like agreed to part ways as soon as the season started, and he was kind of just like trapped there for the longest time. Um, I think Jay Crowder. I don't know how this happens. It's so hard for. I would like to see Jay Crowder go to the Mavericks. I think he'd be really good fit there. It's pretty much what they need. My problem is with the Mavericks. Looking at them, how do they? Where's the trades that they make? I just feel like they don't have any assets to really trade. I feel like the Suns are pretty clear. Like they want someone that can help them win right now, that can replace the productivity that they got from someone like Jay Crowder. How did they do that? Is it I don't know how the money works. Is it Reggie Bullock? I just don't know. What do you think?
I think the best way to think about it is kind of the guy that I already spoke of. Is their best asset to move is Tim Hardaway,
It is.
and any package that they could put together or find to put together is what will help them in the long run. Granted, I think I presented the best case scenario of what could have happened with moving Tim Hardaway.
Yeah.
But usually, in the case of like where Tim Hardaway is sitting with salaries, you're gonna get a couple like pieces, small pieces. You're not gonna get someone that is like a promising young man. You're gonna have a guy that's potentially still like building himself up, but maybe like you have to start thinking about like how do you value that player in context with Luca being there to help them develop, right? And
Yeah.
that's how you have to start looking at like packages you could move. In this case, Jay Crowder is Jay Crowder. He's gonna stay Jay Crowder in my mind. There's no like changing the type of player he is right now. I do think that a guy like Luca does maximize that, but like that piece is not going to be the piece that the Suns are going to go like, you know what, we move Jay Crowder for, because like that's a place where they are kind of pretty filled at the
Hmm.
small forward position with Mikal Bridges, with Cam Johnson, with to a lesser sense. Honestly, I don't even know who's their third guy there, but do have like a third guy in that rotation right there. But those are two good pieces to have at the small forward position, and to think that like some of this originates from like Jay Crowder wanting to still be a part of that starting lineup, but like these guys are progressing a lot faster to a point where they are better as being starters than
Yeah.
Jay Crowder is. Um, I think that sometimes like they misposition him just so that they could put him in the game at that power forward spot, Jay Crowder.
Yeah.
But I don't think that that's really necessary for this team, like the Suns, because like I really don't think, yeah, I just don't think it's necessary, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. It's tough. I Jay Crowder has to go somewhere. There's a lot of teams would want his services, you know. But
Well,
yeah. What do you got?
I do have a team that may want his services.
All right. All right.
As much as it pains me, because like I think this might be the final piece, like the death's note for the league, if they get this piece, and them stop it, no one being able to stop them, right?
Yeah.
Um, I think you offload some of these guys that, you know, some cases they're not even playing for you, and in this case, I think that's half of the reason why you say, "Hey, you know what? Like you're getting a player that has not played all season. I'm getting a player that has not played all season." And that's you know, I think that's fair value when you think of it in that sense. And that team is the Boston Celtics. The Boston
Mm,
Celtics go and put the nail coffin on the league by getting Jay Crowder to back up um, to back Jason Tatum. I don't know why I forgot his name for a second, but to back up Jason Tatum, and a decision that I think would be necessary where um, it does leave him a little bit exposed on the center side, because you do have an injury prone now injury
yeah.
prone center in Robert Williams. But I think that this team plays very well small, it shouldn't be as much of an issue. But you move off Danilo Gallinari to the Suns. He's definitely on a very friendly-ish deal, 2 years, 6 mil. Not too expensive, right? I
Hmm.
know Suns are over the cap, but well, so are the Celtics. But it does. When he is healthy and when he does come back into this lineup, have the ability to come back into the lineup. He has sat out most of the season
I think
with
he's
that torn
injured. Yeah,
ACL.
he's injured for the season, I
Yeah,
believe.
he's out for the whole season.
I think so, unless either planning on him coming back and in the playoffs or anything. But I'm pretty sure Danilo is out for the whole season.
Well, I think that he's the centerpiece because of the money, but
Yeah.
I think that there's someone else on this trade that I think becomes the actual centerpiece for the Suns in this, and that person in my mind is Peyton Pritchard, right?
I like
So
that.
that is actually a place where they're suffering from right now,
Hmm.
lacking a playmaker, as Campaign is nice and all, but he's injured too, I believe, as well at this point right now. I don't know if he came back. I don't remember seeing him in the game on Thursday,
Mm.
but they're really suffering right now because Chris Paul and him are dealing with injury issues right now. So Payne Pritchard coming into this trade automatically bolsters their playmaking. He's a guy that can find his own shot, really small, but he still can find his own shot, can help with facilitating the offense. And then, we always talk, I was talking about malcontents. Um, with a guy like DeAndre Ayton that already is a problem, you do want to have a more competent center backup. I don't think that he really takes you over to the top, like for a difference of like what Bismack Biyombo brings you. But when you look at PERs, this guy is way better than Bismack Biyombo, and I'm not gonna lie, he's not that far off from Aiton's PER either. Luke
Hey,
Kennard coming back as well in this
mm,
trade would help the Suns bolstering that backup. Let's be honest, Bismack Biyombo, there was times where he was like, I didn't even know if he was still in the
yeah.
league. So like, so that's definitely a good backup to have for them in that situation. I know that this does make the Celtics like front court a little bit more thin, but like I really don't think that that's a deficiency that
Yeah.
they'll really have because Al Horford is a really changeable type of player. We just talked about how Jay Crowder is mispositioned to being power forward. Jay Crowder can now play that four for them in their second unit. He could come back. I don't know if they're gonna let him start. I just don't know if that's gonna be an option. But like for an actual like shot at winning a championship, I think he would listen and hear out what the Celtics has to, would provide to him. He used to play there too. I think it's a good reunion. They have a lot of interchangeable bigs that aren't the biggest players, but like they're interchangeable in that sense where you can mix and match some Al Horford after five, throw Ja, I keep on saying it, Jay into the four, and then even with Robert Williams at the five, him at the four again. There's a lot of options that they
Yeah.
have if they bring in a guy like this.
I I I think that'd be pretty scary if the Celtics get someone like um Jay Crowder. That'd be pretty crazy. And exactly like you're saying, like losing someone like Luke Cornett, like and Danilo, who's pretty much not going to play for the whole season and all that. Not too bad, not too bad. Like that's a pretty big bolster for them. I like kind of like for both teams. I wonder how much like what the offers even are out there right now for someone like Jay Crowder. Because if you really think about it, of like he's not playing on the Suns. So Suns have like no leverage other than just what's their next best offer. Like so
Yeah.
that's what makes it pretty tough. I do like it. I do like this trade a lot. I would like to see it happen. All right, and not really. I would like to see it happen for the sake of the league because I don't want Boston winning too much. But it would be pretty interesting to see. Curious, how many more fake trades do you have? If you have any more, um, yeah, how much?
I got one more.
You got
I
one
got
more.
actually I got two. I got two more. I
All
got two
right.
more. I got two more. One's unrealistic. One is is actually I think pretty good trade. Um I really do think this is a really good trade for both teams. It's bringing up Yakum Portal back into this conversation.
All right. I like it.
Um, so one thing that I've been thinking about and considering is, you know, there's a guy on Twitter. His name is Bill Renhart. He's like a Nets guy. He covers. I don't know exactly what he does, but like he proposed, like he started talking about something that got me thinking. Right, is like how he felt about like this year's Brooklyn Nets, and saying that it reminds him a lot of like how the 2019 Raptors were structured. Right,
Yeah.
and he brings up how like the Raptors made a move for Marc Gasol at the deadline. And let's be honest, if you think back to that year, I don't
Oh yeah.
we didn't consider 100% the Raptors as like title contenders
Mm-hmm.
at that time in February, right? Like, yes, because the Nets have KD and they have Kyrie, that's why they're being considered for it. But like, let's be honest, there is some flaws on the Nets that needs to be filled. So he spoke about like the Raptors made that move for Mark Gasol at the deadline, which ended up being like pretty huge for them. And Nets are missing that same type of piece, right?
Yep.
So it's been teased for a while about that is that Jakob Poeltl probably is a guy that they would want to have on the team. The Nets having so much like Spurs connection, I think he fits right into the team. I think that the reason why I consider this a win-win in this case is that for the Spurs, not only do they get a promising player back, also get back an expiring contract, which they already have
Mm-hmm.
$27 million under the cap. So for the rest of the season, they would be getting Seth Curry, and then Seth Curry gets to go into free agency, decide where he wants to go from there. And then in return, they get a team friendly deal. Cam Thomas move off the Nets move off
Mm-hmm.
from Cam Thomas. I think in the same respects of like how he spoke about Obi Toppins,
Yep.
um,
I see it.
Cam Thomas is just a guy that is buried, right? Like he's not getting the chance to develop. And one thing that always like gets me about this type of situation is like those guys that are like such fringe tweeners where like they're not good enough to be like in the rotation yet, but they're too good to be in the G League, so they're just wasting their
Mm-hmm.
time on the bench. And I feel for a guy like Cam Thomas that feels that he has the offensive abilities to become a great player in this league, but he needs to learn how to do the other stuff better in this
Yeah.
game. The guy is not a good facilitator. The guy is not good on defense. Like when shooting is your only calling card, that is not enough, sadly, in this league for you to be able to get minutes. And that's where it becomes an issue for him. He has a high usage. Like when he is playing, he
Yeah.
tends to be higher on his usage rate, where he's not thinking or have a tendency of thinking to pass the ball. He's trying to go get his. And sometimes, well, not even sometimes, if you're on a championship team and you have a role player that has not understand that side of it yet, like it's hard to play that type of player, you
Yeah.
know? And a lot of people clamor about like they should be giving him more run, they should be giving him more burn. But like they fail to remember that like someone like this is just not going to be impactful because he's not understanding what his role is going to be
Yeah.
in a playoff scenarios because this is the regular season for teams like the Nets is being completely honest a tryouts
Yeah.
like for the playoffs, right? So you got to figure out what pieces fit and which ones don't in your rotation when the rotation tightens up. And Cam Thomas is clearly just not a guy that would be in the rotation if the playoffs rolled around. So in this case, I think the Spurs get a player that has the ability to want to score, will be learning from a great coach in Greg Popovich on how to hone those skills and lean into these other parts of his game. Seth Curry, it sucks for Seth Curry. I'm not gonna lie, but he's an expiring contract, and that's
Yeah.
value in the market. And then the Nets, yes, they do get an expiring contract in Malcolm Pirtle as well, but I think he's like that final nail, just like I said with Jay Crowder, final nail in the coffin that like bolsters the
Yeah.
lineup where like a lot of the times I think you can move around a Claxon, you can move around um a Ben Simmons, right? But now you don't need to do that as much. You can literally take out one guy and have him play with Jakob Poeltl because Jakob Poeltl actually spaces the floor,
Yeah.
something the Nets have not been able to do with a big in years. So, you want to have a guy like that. And I think that that's the play that puts him in real conversation of like finals contention.
I I mean, I think that for the Nets, that's probably like that's an amazing trade that you guys could get. Jakob Poeltl, I think he's probably one of the he's one of like the I don't know. I want to say elite centers, but like he's pretty close. He's like one of the top centers in the league right now. Um, what I did see is that with the Spurs for Jakob Poeltl, what they want right now, they want picks.
I know they're
Yeah.
crazy. They're crazy for
They
that.
want two
But
first round picks right now.
I don't think they get two. I really
Yeah.
don't think they will get two.
Hmm.
But the Nets are in a place where they have two of the Sixers picks. And I was going to mention that as a
Yeah.
caveat too, is that I would attach that 2023 pick that is coming from from the Sixers.
Hmm.
Granted, it's going to be a playoff like range pick, but I don't know what they're expecting
Yeah.
a draft pick that was a lottery pick for Joachim Fredo. I don't
Yeah.
know if they're gonna get that in the open market, and because like every team that's gonna be in on Joachim Fredo is
Yeah.
not gonna be a team that's in range for giving you a lottery pick.
Yeah.
Unless if you go to somewhere like the Wizards where they're like not they're not 100% understanding where they are in the standings.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Would you like exactly with that trade? Would you add both those two picks if you can get someone like Jakob Poeltl? Because I think, like you're saying, if you get someone like Jakob Poeltl, I think you're like right there for a championship. If everyone stays healthy and everyone's all good, I think you're right there. So
I think it's
is that an
I think
all
it's a
in?
long I think it's a longevity thing you got to ask yourself,
Yeah.
right? Like is Joachim Portal the solution for just this year, or is he the solution for long term? So
Hmm.
first, I think it's contingent on, are you going to get a re-signing from this
Yeah.
guy? This guy, I think you could get on a team friendly deal of like 15 mil, like
Oh yeah.
15, 16 mil. Like I think that would be a perfect time to start thinking about what's the value on Ben Simmons in the off season as well if you don't get it done, but you re-sign Jakob Poeltl, because I do think like I think the biggest thing for me for a long time with the Nets has been I have not liked the idea of KD playing the four, bruising with guys that big for
Yeah.
this long. Like him falling back into that third spot, Claxton playing that four, where he's able to still continue to be the player that he is right now. Um, Kyrie naturally could slide down to the one again, even though he doesn't play like a one. And then the biggest thing, and you know what, this was something I wanted to bring up today, and it's been something I've been thinking about for a couple days now. Is not a couple days; it's been for years now. But like, I was so close to tweeting about this as well too. I did make a tweet because like I saw it after I was having these conversations about this, about them talking about two of the most underrated point guards in like the NBA history, and like Drew Holiday
Hmm.
and Chauncey Billups. And then I made the tweet of like, ironically, these two guys, if the Nets never win a championship, in my mind, are the two reasons why they will never win one, and for two completely different reasons. Granted, with Drew Holiday, why I say this, and that's the person that I've been thinking about lately, is that summer before James Harden got traded, the Nets were in and having conversations about Drew Holiday. And I truly believe that Drew Holiday was more of the solution for the Nets at that time than
James
what
Harden.
James Harden was. So at this point, I think the what is glaring for the Nets is finding a guard that pairs up with Kyrie Irving and allowing for him to be that smaller guard on the court. It could be a combo guard. It could be someone of that ilk. I don't know who that guy is or where that guy is at this point in the league. But like, I think that is more of a glaring issue that the Nets have been rolling out like guys like I know Rose O'Neal is a decent player, but I think Rose O'Neal would benefit from coming off the bench a little bit more. But finding someone that could be a combo guard in that sense, and he doesn't even need to be an offensive first like combo guard. It needs to be a guy that is defensive minded, and I just don't know where that comes from. But I've always felt like that's where the Nets have been seeing their issues with is like not having someone that could fit into that combo guard and then not shifting down KD down to that three position and then making Joe Harris exactly what he is, a bench player.
Yeah.
Like I know he hasn't been starting for a long time, but he's a bench player. He's always been a bench player to my in my mind. He's just when the Nets didn't have as a competitive roster, there was a reason why he was a starter. There should have never been a reason why he was a starter after that.
Yeah. You talk about like the missing like guard piece. I always kind of thought that should have been Ben Simmons. I know he's not necessarily been that, but like as you're talking about it, like the ideal Ben Simmons, like to me, I'm like that fits. That
Yeah.
fits there. If you just got a even 14 points a game from someone like Ben Simmons, like that would have been nice.
Yeah, I'm still one to be very, very patient with the Ben Simmons experiment because,
Yeah.
like, I really do think you need time with a guy that just been injured, just went through what he went through for however long he's been going through this, to give him some time to get into a place where he feels a little bit more confident in himself and comfortable, right? I think the things that Ben Simmons should be working on the most is, and everyone's always going to make the jokes about points and scoring and shit,
Yeah.
but it's not that where I think he needs to be working on the most right now. I think he's overly aggressive on the defensive side where he is fouling
Yeah.
ridiculously. He's fouling out almost way too often than a star should be, quote unquote star. I'm not
Yeah.
gonna say he's a star anymore, but a quote unquote star should be fouling out at, and it leads me to start thinking like I said, if we get to the end of the season, what do you start thinking about? Like, where are some places where his service would be appreciated? So you start looking at teams that are like at the bottoms of seedings, right? You look at a team like Detroit. I think Detroit thinks that they're going to make a jump at some
Yeah.
point soon. So they might not be as willing or are ready to jump as some people may think that they're going to jump. And then you look at a place like where I think Ben Simmons almost landed at in the first place might be the perfect place for him to start. They start looking at the offseason to pair him with. But the issue that comes from there is like there's just no one that's gonna match the salary. You would have
Yeah.
to trade like half your team to match the salary of what Ben Simmons makes. So like it becomes hard to think of trade options that works, right? And the Rockets already fleeced the Nets out of picks. So it's like what are you gonna do? Go back there and ask and they're asking for more picks? No, like
Yeah.
you just unless if they wanted to say like, you know what, we already took your picks. You could give us Ben Simmons if you want. Like, but I guess that's not how the NBA works. And you gotta look for fair value. And I really don't know if there is fair value if it's not from those two teams. But like how those two teams are obviously structured, there's just not enough guys making money to
Yeah.
spread it out
Everyone's on rookie
to the Ben
contracts
Simmons
over
trade.
there. Yeah, everyone's on the
Exactly.
rookie
So
contracts. It's messed up. It's hard to do some trades with with Houston. The only guy there that makes some money is Eric Gordon. So
exactly.
yeah.
And then I
Yeah.
did say I had an irrational
Yes, Mr.
trade.
Irrational one.
I'll go over this one real quickly.
Yeah.
We talked about them earlier. The trade that you hear every single 3 months when there is trade availability. The Pacers moving
Mm,
Miles Turner and Buddy Hield. I've always thought that that is a good place for those. A good place for those two guys to land is the Nets. I think it's become complicated now because the Pacers are actually playing well.
Yeah.
They're not just going to move him for nothing. But like the irrational trade that I saw on Twitter was move Seth Curry, move Joe Harris, move Dayron Sharp, move Cam Thomas, give that 2023 first round pick, give up that 2027 top 8 protected um, pick swap. And actually, that's the thing that not enough people are thinking about as well too, is that Nets do have actual like protections on some of these picks, and they're
Hmm.
not hurting them as much as people would have thought they would have. And the way how I see Rockets have been going, like culture wise, and looking at some of the guys that they have, I really don't think we're going to be in a place
Yeah.
where the Nets are playing a extremely worse than what the Rockets are doing. So if it's the case where the Nets in like 2 3 years don't have KD, don't have Kyrie, and they're picking fifth, fourth, why would I not believe that the Rockets are not at two at or one? You know what I mean? Like so like there's some causes for me to think that like it's not as these picks are definitely not as bad as the ones that they gave in the Celtics trade. And I think if you are going to move those picks like this, I think that this is another all in go for it this year, and it might very well get you that championship this year.
Yeah, that one I can see why you say it's more a little irrational. I don't think, but at least Buddy Hield is
Mm.
definitely not, in my opinion, going anywhere at the moment because man's playing out of his mind and it feel I don't know. Sometimes it's kind of funny because I see like a lot of most teams kind of do this. Like a lot of players that you're hoping to get rid of. You're like, add
Yeah.
them, add some picks, give me some of your now best guys. So that's a pretty funny one. I want to do so. I have a list of a lot of players, rapid fire. Just do you think they're getting traded or you think they're staying with their team? That's it. I'm gonna
Yeah.
go over the list. So we talked a little bit about already. Eric Gordon wants out. He wants out of that team on Houston right now. He's hating it. Do you think he stays? You think he's out?
No trade. He stays, but he stays until they stretch out his contract and waive him. I think that like there's just no value in trading for that 19 mil for a guy like Eric Gordon at this point in his career. I feel for him. I really just feel that no one's moving 19 mil out of their cap just to get back Eric Gordon.
All right, all right.
If it
Next.
would have if it was gonna happen, it would have happened already. You know, that's just how I feel. With that much money,
Yeah.
like yeah, would have already happened.
I think I agree with you. Next, Gary Trent Jr. Is he staying or is he out?
I think he gets traded. What was it? CJ McCollum recently. I think it was either on Hollinger's podcast or either on Zach Lowe's podcast, or maybe it was even what's his name? He did
Woj?
this
Oh wait,
Utah.
oh Brian
Utah.
Windhorse. Brian Windhorse.
Brian Windhorse. Brian Windhorse's podcast, The Hoops Collective, I think
Mhm.
he was on. He spoke about how someone on the Raptors is moving. Let's be
Oh
honest. If you
yeah.
do like a process of elimination, who does he have a relationship with?
Yeah.
Gary Trent Jr. So
Yeah.
it probably is that Gary Trent Jr. is going to try to mosey his way into a trade. If it happens, good for him. I just don't know where.
Yeah, that's fair. Very fair. Next, Zach Levine. Bulls having a lot of a lot of heat in the organization right now. DeMar DeRozan, Zach Levine. One of them seems like it has to go. What do you think about Zach Levine?
Dak stays. If you trade, DeMar DeRozan goes.
All right. All right. Um Karis LeVert. Karis LeVert. Where is he staying? Is he going?
Um, I see a world where you can say that Karis LeVert moves. I think he's staying. How much is he making? He's making around close to 20 mil a year. He's on it expiring, so that's a good
Hmm.
part. So like if a team is interested in that, they could do that. But I think he stays.
All right, Joe Harris. Or you think he's saying to go?
The problem with Joe Harris is he still has 2 years on his contract, and he's making the same money as what I just said with Karis LeVert.
Yeah.
So maybe there's a trade right there. If they want to move, if the Cavs want to go back to having a shooting perspective of honestly, that probably is the only trade that works for them too. I think that it's perfect, and it goes back to what I was saying. Obviously, Karis LeVert is not that defensive
Mm,
heavy, but I do think that he's a pretty good like combo guard to have back. The guy's had 50 points in a game before. He has that fire.
yeah.
That's literally what we need back on our team again. If the Cavs are open to it, please, Cavs. I forgot who their GM's name is. But
Mm.
if their GM could hear me right now, please pick up the phone and ask about how interested are you guys in keeping Joe Harris?
All right, all right. Another player. Right now, he have been aggressively shopping Duncan Robinson. Do you think Duncan Robinson gets traded or not?
Same thing, man. These guys are on long contracts for
Mhm.
money that doesn't make any sense for what they do. I'm not giving up my assets to pick up a guy like that. Um, Either he gets waived or he has 4 more years on
Yeah,
his
he's a lot
contract.
of.
And
He's
his
making a lot of money.
PER is 7.9. That is so bad. Just to give you perspective, Cam Thomas's PER is 11.9.
Ooh, no.
Patty Mills' PER is 13.5. Isaac Okora's PER is 10. Like there's a lot of guys that are playing a lot better that I would not move to get that guy.
Very fair. The Duncan Robinson one's always funny whenever I see him in trade talks and all that. Next one, Fred Van Vliet. You think he gets moved or not?
Think he gets moved, and I think he goes to the Clippers. Um, I don't know how they figure it out, but they're gonna be sending another boatload of picks to the Raptors, like they did to OKC. They're gonna be
Yeah,
sending a boatload of picks. I don't know how much picks is gonna take to get it done, but I think we'll be seeing him on the Clippers.
I like that. That would be kind of interesting for the Clippers. Next person, Christian Wood. There's been a little bit of talks. I know Christian Wood is on expiring, I believe, and they're not sure if they're going to be able to re-sign him. So that's why there's this kind of talks right now. What do you think?
I don't think. I think it would be good to get him off your books because I think Christian Wood's gonna think he has a lot more space in the market. Actually, there's not as much. I'm so sorry.
You
There's
get
not as
it.
much big names in free agency this year, so he might garner some money. But the teams that have capped, he's not. Is none of the teams he's gonna want to be on. So he's gonna realize his market is gonna drop real quick. So I don't know. I think teams may be just stand pat and not try to go after him. He's been a person that's been a problem sometimes. So I don't think he gets moved for those two reasons.
Next, you already got rid of one of their top guys, but for the Raptors, OG Anunoby. Do you think he stays or goes?
Okay, so like I think he could go, but I don't think he's gonna go for what the Raptors value him at. I know they've reevaluated it to being two promising players rather than just 3 picks, which I
Yeah.
think is insane that they would ever do that or say that. But yeah, I think if he goes, it's because someone has one compelling player that they send to them.
All right. Um, we talked. You actually talked about it a little bit. Miles Turner, though. You think he stays or he goes?
Well, like I said, my
Yeah.
trade was a rational trade. I don't think there's a world where he's gonna be able to be moved. Uh, his team is doing pretty well right now. They're waiting on Tyrese to come back. I think they're just going to stand pat with what they have right now and move forward. See if they could get into the playoffs the traditional way, or probably in the play-in.
Another center on this list, DeAndre Ayton. We know the turmoil between him and the Suns organization. Do you think he gets moved at all?
I just don't understand why the Suns didn't go for a sign and trade situation
Yeah.
with the with the Pacers, because you could have just got Miles Turner.
Yep.
And I think he would have been a better fit for you guys, which makes no sense that they didn't think about that. Not only that, they probably could have went after Buddy Hield
Mm-hmm.
while his value didn't get this hot, right? So yeah, no, I think there's no market for this guy. This guy is annoying to me because of like what he's become, and like the it's the corniness for me, like for like
Mm-hmm.
some teams, man. Like I always talk about the Grizzlies and them about
Yep.
that, but like he's just corny, man. So I don't think that's obviously not affecting trade value, but I don't think he gets moved, man.
All right, Terry Rozier, scary Terry. Do you think he stays or he goes?
What is he making? I got to see how much he's making first. Um, is he on a team friendly? No, he's not. He's on
Yeah,
a
I think it's
terrible contract.
yeah, it's
He's
pretty
on a
high.
he has $22
Oh,
million
jeez.
dollars on the books.
He still
He
has an
still
extra
has a
three
good
years. Ooh.
Jesus. He has a pretty good PER. I don't know. I just don't think like they're going to be asking someone for picks. I don't think there's a lot of desperate teams in the league right now for them to want to go after Terry. So he's staying, sadly for him.
All right. Last one I had was Derrick Rose. I know right now there's Derrick Rose say there from Mark Stein. There's a report saying that the Knicks are open to trading him, but they want to do right by him and trade him to a situation where he can actually do well. Do you think Derrick Rose, he stays or does he go?
Well, if they're talking about doing right by him, right? Doing right by him.
Mm-hmm.
Think the one situation that makes sense, and I don't know how they make the money work. Um, they're well over the cap. Um, Trying to look at what guys on the team they would possibly be able to move. I don't know how happy the Knicks would be about getting this guy back, but I think somewhere that makes sense. Once again, yes, he gets moved, and it would be the Clippers. If they fail on getting Fred Van Vliet, it would be they would move, in my mind, where the money makes sense is Reggie Jackson and Derrick Rose.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how high you would be on Reggie Jackson being a part of the team, but yeah, I think that's one place they could go.
I wouldn't. If I was the Knicks, I wouldn't be mad at getting Reggie Jackson. I'm more thinking most likely like Derrick Rose. I don't know if they're even expecting to really get like value back for him because like he's completely out of the rotation right now. It's more just like a hey, someone wants you, whatever we can make the money work. Here, take Derrick Rose. Let him have a shot to actually win something.
Mill is going to be hard to like
Yeah,
piece together for some teams, and
yeah.
that's where I see like it may have to be like a one for one like trade. Um, I thought of just John Wall in that case, but John Wall only makes $6.5 million, so it can be hard to like put a
Yeah,
package around that too.
for sure.
They do have a Serge Ibaka trade exception actually, so they could make it work.
Okay.
If
That
that's
I
the
that could be
case.
interesting. I'd like to see Derrick Rose go on the Clippers, and I feel like they have a lot of those old guys on there that are kind of past their prime, and like Nicholas Batum and all that. Um, I'd be interested to see that. So that's all I had for. I actually like that a lot. I think I agreed with most of your picks there on who stays and who goes. Um, Real quickly. I know we're also running a little bit long on this one. I got one thing for weekly roundup I wanted to get your thoughts on. A little bit before we started, I saw the report talking about how the Lakers are optimistic about Anthony Davis could return as soon as late next week, and this was per Woj. How do you think this actually helps the Lakers' playoff chances? We saw how well Anthony Davis was playing before the injury. What do you think?
Oh man, these boys about to be a playing. That's it. Like, there's I don't. They're like only like a few games behind like the A seed if you look
Mm-hmm.
at the standings. So it's not like it's preposterous to think that they could climb, right? Like they are 2.5 games out of the ninth seed. They are oh yeah, no, not 2.5. They're 1.5 games out of the eighth and ninth seed, and then they're 2 games behind the last slot for the play in, and actually the sixth seed as well. So it's not preposterous for them to get into the playoffs and go on a run, but I think they could beat the Grizzlies in the second round. I don't know about that one. I don't know about that one, man. I just don't. I don't feel confident for them,
Yeah.
even if AD comes back, that they will right the ship right away. And I know AD was playing at like MVP level before he got injured, but like that sample size was so small. Like it feels like I haven't seen AD since like November. Like
Yeah.
and November feels like years ago.
I feel like this
In
kind of always
November, the Nets
happens.
were
Oh yeah.
under 500. That's just to put it in perspective, you know.
That's pretty crazy. Yeah, I feel like Anthony Davis, what always happens is he plays really well, gets injured, and starts off really slow, and either gets injured again or it's just not the same as he was beforehand. So interested to see what actually happens. I think exactly like you're saying, even if you get Anthony Davis at an elite level, it still kind of just feels like a playing team. But to be determined. Jeff, I thought this was a good one. Do you have anything you want to say before we wrap it up?
Oh man, Unc Shannon, man, he's
Oh
balling
yeah.
out here, man. Unc Shannon, man. Yeah, I don't know if you got to see the press conference
Oh
after the
no.
game. LeBron said, "I ride with my boy Shannon 365 days in a year, 366 on leap years." They are hilarious. They're
Oh
both funny for
man.
that. You know what? Like Dylan Brooks he did joke about it. Like he kind of was disrespectful about it, but he is right in a certain aspect of it. If this was just any other person that did the same thing on the court to a
Yeah.
player, that fan would have been gone. So like
Hmm.
we always ask, and let's be honest, this is a sports pundit that does this on a daily basis, that is always asking the players to hold themselves to a higher regard. Like you need at the same time to hold yourself, you need to hold yourself to a higher regard as like a sports pundit too. That is on a well recognized like media space on Fox. Like you don't see Skip Bayless going out there and doing that, like having fights with people on the sideline, like, and that's your contemporary, right? So, like, I would expect the same thing, like, out of Shannon Sharp in that situation. I know it's funny, it does make you laugh a little bit,
Yeah.
but there is some seriousness to it as well, where he needs to hold himself into a higher regards in that sense.
Yeah, I actually like that Dylan Brooks brought that up. Of like, if this was anybody else, like they'd be out. Like,
Yeah.
this is you're there to watch the game. Come disrespectful like this, like it's not acceptable. Yeah, like you say, you gotta you gotta hold yourself to a higher standard, especially as a famous person or anything like that. So it was just funny to see. It's funny to see.
It was definitely funny to see.
Very, very entertaining. Was it necessary to happen? Not necessarily, but I mean, hey, that's what Shannon Sharp does. You know, he's an entertainer right now. So, very, very funny that happened.
Unc, Unc, LeBron had to show up for Unc after that. He had
Yeah.
to come back, storm back, and win that game against the Grizzlies last night for that. So
Yeah.
there was that as well. But that's it on my end.
Word. No, I love that you brought that up. Man, this has been a fun one. I hope all the listeners enjoyed. Let us know what you guys think. You know, subscribe, like, do all that stuff. Helps us out as always. Yeah, no, I'm glad. Looking forward to next week. Be looking out for more clips that we're trying to throw out there. And yeah, this has been episode 47.